with the biggest round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, we have 386 abstracts in this book. So here it is for all of you, our very own The Abstract Book. Thank you so much. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, the moment has come where we would be highly obliged and privileged to listen to our Honourable Chief Guest, Dr. Jitendra Singh. Can we please put our hands together really loudly for him? Thank you so much, sir, for being here with us. Anywhere, sir. You have graced this occasion.
Good afternoon. On the dais, Dr. Mandal, an eminent scientist in his own, by his own merit and hard work over the last several decades. Dr. Arun Vaishnav, who's traveled all the way to be with us this afternoon. Dr. Manoj Chaudhary, Dr. Conrad, Dr. Annapurna, and of course our very dynamic director whom you heard just now, Vikramjit Vasu. I think to pick up from where the director left, it's indeed always not only a matter of pleasure but also a great inspiration to be here in the city of joy. And as he was mentioning, he mentioned out a list of names in the field of academics who have always inspired, I think, over the last a century or so, at least 3 or 4 generations of scientific researchers and scholars. And since I too belong to the world of academics, having been myself a teacher for more than a quarter of a century, I think the two most important names which fascinated our younger years was, of course, Dr. B.C. Roy, who is one of the tallest physicians of the last 2 centuries, in fact, who was also the founder of the Association of the Physicians of India, which is now possibly the largest organization of physicians in the world. We have an award instituted in his name, and that since I belong to the same fraternity, I can understand in how much esteem that is held. And the second one, not often mentioned, is Dr. Sama Prasad Mukherjee, who was the Vice Chancellor at the age of 30, 34, 35, the youngest Vice Chancellor in India, and that too appointed by the British government. So that was the unusual talent. And of course, he's mentioned the host of others, Dr. C.V. Raman, who of course also cut his teeth in Calcutta. But one name which is often missed, at least which should not be missed at the CSIR platforms, is that of Sir Ramnath Chopra, who is known to be the father of pharmacology in India, and in fact was the director, or maybe the first director, of one of the earliest laboratories that is a part of the CSIR families today, the CSIR IIIM of Jammu. And in fact, Ramnath Chopra has superannuated from Calcutta somewhere in 1942 or so, then moved over to that place, or maybe the then prince of that place sought his services. And that laboratory, along with 1 or 2 other ones, got incorporated as a part of the CSIR after independence. And then, of course, he was also knighted by the British government. Now, as far as the conference is concerned, I think this is possibly one of the better times happening for science in India, and also one of the better times for this conference to be organized. Even though, as the director was mentioning, he's been 75 years old, and the conference being held in India for the second time, and that too after several decades. But I think this is one of the better times in the sense that India today, as he was rightly mentioning in his concluding remarks, is now on the ascent. And the entire ascent of India, or as the Honourable Prime Minister fondly keeps reminding us of Viksit Bharat or 2047 India, when India will celebrate the century of its independence, I think is mostly going to be technology driven. And that is also true for the entire world. But today, India is no longer picking up cues from others or being led by others or learning from the success stories practiced by others. In fact, we are creating success stories for others to follow. We are giving them cues for others to follow. I think the most notable example is that of space. Our ISRO was established in the year 1969 when the US had the first human being landing on the surface of moon. But today we have reached the southern pole of moon before anybody else. And so also in every other sphere. And therefore, a sector like glass, which is relatively a newer sector, which is a relatively upcoming sector, which also started off relatively new, is a futuristic area where India today stands qualified to make a headway and also offer vital cues for others to follow. As we all know, there's been a tremendous amount of advancements in this area in the last few decades. We have new products, we have new technologies. Our applications have become so wide-ranging, from civil, industrial to communication, to displays, to imaging, to scientific, medical, strategic, as was being mentioned by the Director, almost in every sector. And in a nutshell, I think it would not be inappropriate or exaggeration to say that glass has indeed broken the glass ceiling. And therefore, as I said, this is the right time because the glass ceiling has been broken by the glass. And Dr. Basu is the one who is also witness to it and also part of this activity. And truly so, because glass today has intricately and very interwovenly entered into our life routine. Its role has become unending, all-pervasive. Whatever you do or whatever you are consciously, unconsciously living or doing, you don't realize that glass is always there in your company. If it is cold winter, it is protecting you from the cold wave. If it is hot summer, it is giving you a closed window pane for the air condition to cool. If it is scorching sun, it is protecting you through sunglasses. If it is too much of noise outside, you use the same glass cover to keep yourself away from the pollution of noise. It helps you look out through the window pane at the scene outside, and also helps you to look at yourself through the mirror. So it is indeed a window for you, for the world outside, and also a window for you to look at yourself. So that indeed is the wide application as well as wide presence of glass, which has virtually become a part of our life. And in the manufacturing sector, whether it's the motor cars, whether it's the aeroplanes, whether it's the houses, whether it's sculptures, you name an area and it is there. And then, of course, that's why I said the glass science is a new area of science, a new relatively newer stream of science, but it is now the time for it to take off in a bigger way. And as was being mentioned by Dr. Basu, they have also contributed in different other sectors, which actually is the essence of any future growth. He was talking about the space sector, the atomic energy sector, the defense sector. Of course, we have a wide application in optical glasses, producing more than 25 varieties of optical glasses. And that is also what is known as the whole of science approach, where you are integrating yourself with the space of atomic energy. And in fact, I firmly believe that if we have to move on from here where we are, or we have to achieve that goal of Viksit Bharat, as we very romantically envisage for ourselves, the only way is to move in an integrated fashion. So as long as we are in silos, it won't be possible. And incidentally, glass has already broken all these silos. Even if you try to keep it in silos, it doesn't live in silos because it has penetrated into space, is penetrated into atomic energy, penetrated into ophthalmology, penetrated into life sciences, penetrated virtually everywhere. And therefore, it is going to be an essential part of the future India growth and also the future economy. I know how many of us realize that when the economy shift happens, and that's something which the economists have started acknowledging now across the world, is that the economy is very soon, sooner than later, going to undergo a paradigm shift from the manufacturing to the recycling processes. And there again, the reusability of glass, and reusability of so many other akin materials, and there also the bioeconomy. He was referring to a number of new initiatives that have happened in the last 10 years under Prime Minister Modi, because it was possible only because we had a political dispensation which was very forthcoming and encouraging for all our new initiatives, or sometimes even path-breaking initiatives, one of which is, of course, opening up the space sector to the private players, which nobody could have imagined till a few years ago. But we did so because Prime Minister Modi was very enabling in allowing us to do so. So, as we move on from the manufacturing to the other side of economy, it is the bioeconomy which is going to be an important component. And you will be glad to know that very recently, just about 2 or 3 months back, I think we are among the first countries in the world to have come out with an exclusive biotechnology policy called Bio-E3, which means biotechnology for economy, biotechnology for environment, and biotechnology for employment. And it gives me immense pleasure, also sense of pride to say that before 2014, before this government came in, our bioeconomy just stood at $10 billion US, which is a very small fraction, sometimes even embarrassing to quote that figure. Today we are nearly $150 billion US, just about in 10 years. And our projections say that we would be about $300 billion in the next 3 or 4 years. So it's now becoming a part of the ecosystem, and therefore the glass industry and the glass synergy between the academia, research, startups, and the industry stakeholders has to have a wider ecosystem, not only for a wholesome growth, but also for its own individual growth. And from that point of view, just last year, I think I suggested to Director General to have a campaign, year-long campaign, 1 week, 1 lab, which you fancifully described as OWOL, because the youngsters these days understand the acronyms better than what it is actually. So 1 week, 1 lab, the idea was, and I'm glad the Director General was very generous to accept my suggestion, so that we are able to tell the world what we are doing. Otherwise, I have come across people, even some of the academicians who are not related to our stream of research, they would tell me, we just pass by the gate, we don't know what is happening inside. And some of your labs which are dedicated to the agriculture sector never had farmers in their premises. In fact, we held one such program in one of the institutes, because you have 2 or 3 such labs which are hugely into agriculture, floriculture, aroma. And I told the director of the lab, I said, instead of we talking, let the farmers talk who have come here for the first time. So most of them said, we have entered these gates for the first time. And they started narrating very strange stories. They said, we didn't know what was happening inside. Somebody told us they were cutting frogs and doing all sorts of nonsense experiments. And in the night there were ghosts dancing. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not only for the publicity part of it that this campaign was undertaken, but also so that the stakeholders know what we are doing. If the ultimate goal of any scientific research is to bring ease of living for a common citizen, how would we achieve that if the citizen for whom we are doing is not aware of what we are doing? And therefore, I have now suggested to the Director General that there's been a very enthusiastic and a successful experience with this 1 week, 1 lab, and all the directors are quite upbeat about it because they got projection, they also got the opportunity to speak to the media, which earlier they never got. So I have now suggested to the Director General to have 1 week, 1 theme, because you have more than one institute. As I said, now to break the silos, you have more than one institutes within the CSIR and also outside CSIR who are allied in a theme. So if you have a glass theme, you have some of the CSIR labs, plus you also have the space department, which is widely using this very vital component for any space mission, these optical gadgets, optical glasses. So we have one theme, 1 week, aligning all the institutes, because I have seen times, not many years ago, when the directors of the allied institutes were also not introduced to each other. And sometimes they wouldn't even know who the other one was. So we learn to work with each other for the mutual good of each other, also learn to live with each other. And I think that has our success in the vaccine story also was possible because there was a very close synergy between biotechnology department, the life sciences department, the health sector, and the industry linkage right from the beginning. So also the space sector. We were just one-digit space startup four years back. Today we are nearly 300, and the first generation have already become attractive entrepreneurs. So I think glass has a tremendous amount of commercial potential as well. So it will be unfair to bind it only within the confines of research and not let it have its own flight. It's just like once Francis Bacon said in the context of literature, he said the biggest harm to the cause of literature is done by the teachers of literature. So we should not be tomorrow cursed for having done greatest harm to the cause of glass industry by confining it only to the teachers and the tutors and the mentors. So let it have a wider reach so that the glass industry, the glass sector, the glass science indeed becomes a very essential component of the future economy of India as we move on from rank 5 to rank 3 and rank 1 and finally the 2047 Viksit Bharat. At least we should have the pride as he was looking back at 1986. I hope the director in 2047 would have the pride to look back and say, look here, this institute too contributed in the making of India of 2047. Thank you.